Opinions, viewpoints, and beliefs presented on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the management, the affiliates and broadcast partners, or the sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Scarefest Radio, the radio you can see.
And hello and good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Scarefest TV. We've been gone for a week celebrating the Thanksgiving holiday with friends and family. Actually, I had to freaking work. Anyway, Katie Followell is my co-host tonight, the lovely and talented Katie Followell, fresh off of her stint at the liquor store. So,
that's why I look so rabid. Like...
And my guest tonight is Zach Bales. Zach is a presenter, a speaker, a seminar presenter at Scarefest. He's done it. This was your second year, Zach?
It was indeed, yes. I'm really happy you invited me back. It was a blast.
And tonight, so we're going to be talking about UFOs tonight, the enduring mystery of UFOs. I'll give you a preview of that in a moment. Bonehead Weekly will be up with 5 nights at Freddy's. And other than that, we're just kind of coasting because we start all the good stuff January 1st. So, tonight, let's just go ahead and give him the teaser. Zach Bales, the paranormal road tripper and author of the UFO Chasers Atlas, he discusses his recent journey to Nevada's extraterrestrial highway and the close encounter he had there. Listeners will also uncover the details behind Kentucky's own UFO abduction case and why it is often considered to be one of the most haunting encounters in UFO history. I did not even know we had a UFO abduction case. No clue.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I always tell people that Kentucky has arguably more UFO history than really just about any other state in the United States.
See, now that honestly doesn't surprise me because now me and the paranormal side of it, the ghost side of it, I believe that every paranormal, every haunted location, every ghost, anywhere, has a connection to Kentucky. It's like we are the hub of weird shit.
We are.
That's just the only way I can put it. Okay, but let's start. Okay.
I call it the Bluegrass Triangle. I say that we have this kind of like the Bermuda Triangle that just basically localized over the state of Kentucky, and we've got just a little bit of all the weird stuff around, UFOs included.
Well, like Bigfoot. I was camping in an area that's famous for Bigfoot. Been camping there for years. Had no clue. Had absolutely no clue. On UFOs, though. Now, I saw a UFO when I was a kid, and that's honestly the only thing UFO I've ever seen. Now, I saw it, and looking back on it, now that I know what a Harrier jet is, it could have been a test of something like that my thing at the time was it was moving way too fast to be a helicopter. And it's flying in circles and stopping. Dead stop. Okay? Now I'm calling it a UFO because I didn't know what it was. So, fair enough. Tell me about I want to get into the case though. Before we get to, the extraterrestrial highway, tell me what it was going on with the case in Kentucky.
Well, there's actually, believe it or not, I would argue there's 4 really important UFO cases that have happened in Kentucky. I think the one you're talking about, though, and the one I kind of mentioned in my speech here at Scarefest, is the famous UFO abduction case.
Right.
Placed in January of 1976. I live down in Pulaski County, which is the Somerset area. So about 30 miles north of where I'm at in Lincoln County, Kentucky. It was an early January morning. Well, it's ended in the early January hours, but it started off late one night. 3 ladies. They were on their way home from dinner one night. They'd had dinner at Redwood Restaurant in Lancaster, Kentucky, and they were headed home in Liberty. Well, when they got in Stanford, Kentucky, they took a ride onto Highway 78, and that's when they saw it. According to them, there were lights in the sky, and not just any lights, not like an airplane, helicopter. These were, well, first off, these lights, they followed them. These were bright. To them, it was UFO activity. Long story short, these lights got a little brighter. They got a little more frequent as they were going down this lonely kind of 2-lane curvy road. And the brighter the lights got, it's kind of like Close Encounters of the. Have you seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind? Kind of like the scene at the beginning where Roy Neary, Richard Dreyfuss's character, boom, and that light kind of shines down on the car. It was something kind of akin to that, really. It scared these ladies, and they had the idea, maybe we can outrun this thing, whatever it is. And they started, speeding up, but it didn't matter how fast they went. This light above them kind of went faster and faster and faster. At one point, one of the ladies asked the other, she says, "Why are you driving? We can't be going this fast on this 2-lane road." And she said, "No, look at my foot. I don't even have my foot on the gas anymore." And sure enough, that was the case. Well, long story short, these ladies ended up losing consciousness that night. When they woke up, an hour had passed. They were 8 miles down the road. And at first, they didn't really remember what happened. And then it all started coming back to them. They remembered being taken up in a flying saucer, for lack of a better way to say it, and having some really odd experiments done on them. The experiments they talked, for example, one of the ladies afterwards, she claimed that she remembered having her eyes removed from their sockets and kind of laid down on her cheeks, while the extraterrestrial sort of sent like some sort of a metal rod of some sort back into her brain. I'm telling you, it's some scary, scary stuff. But they went to the authorities. They went to the police. They went to the newspapers here in South Central Kentucky. And I know in my hometown, Somerset, they put this story on the front page of the paper. As you can probably imagine, it was a pretty, we don't have a lot of stuff like that happens too often. So this was front page story. It got picked up all over the state of Kentucky. Wasn't long before this thing was picked up all over Kentucky.
In 76, I was a kid. So, okay. Yeah, I admit, but I'm trying to remember now. Okay. That was January of 76.
Yes.
Okay. That was the year before the weather went to shit, I think. I think it was 76, 77 when we had the big blizzard. Or actually, it was it got very, very cold. I'm just trying to remember what would have preoccupied me, other than the fact that at that age I didn't read newspapers. But no, I had not really heard. On another episode, we talked about the time when a train hit a UFO in the state, because that's just the way shit happens in Kentucky. But I had no idea we actually had a high profile abduction case. Katie, over to you.
Well, I was sitting here thinking, because we have. Is there any theories as to why we are having so much activity or UFO? Like I know with ghosts, they say that like limestone water would attract them. I guess I've never seen a UFO. I've never had an experience with that. Like, what? I just can't figure out why we would have so much, like here in Kentucky, Is there any scientific theories of like, places that are not as populated, or what? Is there anything?
I've heard it said before that the limestone honestly acts like very similar to the UFO activity. I know in like Sedona, Arizona, they claim that there's a lot of energy that not necessarily limestone there, but they think that it's like a vortex almost beneath the earth that sort of tracks these things in. And there are theories that it might be the case here in Kentucky as well, but I don't necessarily think there's any real maybe scientific proof, other than they may love the taste of bourbon or horse races.
Yeah. I was telling him before the show, guys, that I do community theater in my spare time, and there's actually a play called High Strangeness by Liz Orndorff, who's local to my town. And I got to meet, I believe it was Mona Stafford's nephew, and he would tell us a lot of stories about Mona and stuff. But did you ever get to meet them? the ladies, because she came to the play at Westy Hill once, but she passed away not long after.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, I never had a chance to meet any of the three ladies who were abducted, or claimed that they were abducted that night. But they got pretty. They sat down for many interviews. Actually, one of the more famous interviews they sat down with, that you can still find the information online. They were actually invited on the Tomorrow Show on NBC back in the 70s.
Wow.
Yeah, the host at the time, I think he thought that he might be able to catch them in a lie. I don't think he really believed. So he had all sorts of world-class police investigators with their polygraph tests. He had some famous hypnotists on the program that night. And the joke really ended up being kind of on him, though. I don't think he was ready for the ladies not only to pass every polygraph test that they took that night, but, before it was all said and done, they pretty much passed every polygraph test they ever took about this incident. They all three went to their grave, never changing their story a single time, which is different. I feel like a lot of times abductees, their stories tend to change a little bit over the years. This is one of the cases where it happened. These ladies had their story. They all three agreed on all the details. They stuck with it. And they all went to their graves basically saying, we just wish more people would have believed us in life, because it was a scary thing that happened. And yeah,
I will admit that, I'm always skeptical about UFOs. I don't know why. How would you? How can you communicate with the skeptic? How can you prove to them that aliens are something we need to talk about? That they may have seen a UFO. If someone was at your panel and was like, "Oh, it's all bullshit," how would you talk to them about that?
Well, I go to a lot of events, different festivals and conferences and whatnot. And from my perspective, oftentimes when people hear, that I've written a book about UFOs and I'm a believer myself, they'll come to me, and you'd be surprised how many people who are skeptical, who come in saying, I'm very skeptical, as soon as they hear somebody is a believer, they'll often come over, they'll lower their voice down, and they'll say, I tell people I don't believe, but here's what happened to me. I guess what I would tell to most skeptics is almost everybody has a story of some point, not just necessarily UFOs, but some of those ghost encounters, ghost stories as well, cryptozoology. Seems like the more people I talk to, the more stories I hear. So anybody who's a skeptic, I encourage them to attend these events, attend these festivals and conferences, attend Scarefest, listen to some of these panels, listen to what people have to say, because you'd be surprised how many, just the sheer number of people who have encountered and experienced these things. And that's the best way to, hear about this and learn more, is just listen to the people who've experienced it.
That makes sense. We're coming up on the quarter of the hour, so I'm trying to not ask, because I have some questions that might take a little more time. How did you get into aliens? Has this been a lifelong love for you?
It has. My parents were both school teachers. I'm a school teacher myself. And when I was growing up, they love books. They thought books are the best way to, I guess, bring up a kid. Surround them with as many books as you can. And they bought this book, Childcraft series, was what they had, all the installments over math and science. But there was one in there called Mysteries and Fantasies. And that was the one that, as a kid, I didn't care much for the math one or the science one or any of the others. But that one on Mysteries and Fantasies, I read it and read it and read it. By the time it's said and done, all the pages were coming out. And it had all the classic UFO cases in it, and pictures and artwork. And I don't know, seeing that as a kid, it was like, okay, this is something I'm interested in. And I feel like, from 5 years old, that right there sort of launched my lifelong passion for this stuff.
I'm kind of the same way with ghosts. I think we even had this. For me, it was called the Kids Everything book, and it was about ghosts and monsters and stuff. So it was very cool. We are coming up on the first quarter of the hour, so I think it's time for our first commercial break.
Horror. Movie. Fans. 4. life. On Facebook, find us. For watch parties. For news. For memes. For friends. For life. Horror movie fans for life. Join us.
Does anyone remember the time that their fourth grade teacher accidentally showed them a slasher movie at lunchtime? Well, a class in Miami does on October 2nd. Instead of showing them the classic Disney-friendly version of Winnie the Pooh, a teacher showed his class the independent horror movie Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. The version of the story where Pooh and Piglet go on a killing rampage after being abandoned by Christopher Robin. Merry Christmas, everybody. Okay, we're talking tonight. We're talking to Zach Bales tonight about the enduring mystery of UFOs. Now, I'm going to give it's kind of a half-ass follow-up. Since the government has all of a sudden stepped into the fray and said, well, maybe there's something else flying around out there, have you noticed a change in people's attitudes?
I feel like I have at different festivals and conferences. I've spoken to a lot of people. I feel like a lot of this I don't want to say the skeptics are eating crow per se, because I don't necessarily think that's the case. But I do think that there's maybe more, I don't know, less people maybe turning up their nose at people who claim to have had these encounters than ever before. So, it'll be fascinating to see where this goes. I always tell people, of course, the federal government, United States federal government always kind of turns out, well, historically, it's been kind of the boogeyman when it comes to the UFO history. And a couple of years ago, my wife and I were up in Canada at Shag Harbor. It's a site where there's a very famous UFO incident up there as well. And I was speaking to one of the guys who saw this incident up there. And he said, I tell you what, right after it happened, he said, you'll never believe what happened. You'll never believe who showed up. And I said, I don't know. Who was it? The Royal Canadian Mounted Police? He said, no, it was your guys who showed up in Canada. I said, our guys? He said, yeah, it was the U.S. government. He said, they were on the scene before anybody else, and they were turning people away and shining, bright lights in our eyes to keep us from seeing what was going on out there. I said, they were in Canada? He said, yes, absolutely. He said, check the history on it. He said, I was there. I know they were U.S. So it's always fascinating to me. The United States is, I think, worldwide. Our government's kind of the boogeyman for a lot of a lot of these UFO reveals and stuff. So it's fascinating now that our government is kind of on the forefront, or at least parts of our government seem to be on the forefront of, revealing, or maybe we're getting there. It may be smoke and mirrors, but who knows?
I think, now there's a lot of conspiracy theories about it. I think that they're just so convinced that they're losing control of the information that they wanted to get out ahead of it. That's my personal theory. Oh, by the way, next time someone asks you why Kentucky is a hotbed of UFO activity, it's a great place to stop and pee. Think about it. Lots of places for a UFO to pull off the road, stop, pee, grab a hamburger while you're out.
Kentucky's a good off-ramp. They get some fried chicken. They can get some fried chicken.
Now, let's just go ahead and jump ahead to your little teaser that you put in there. You said you went on the extraterrestrial highway, which is, I guess, the one that goes down to close to Area 57 or whatever it is. Heinz 57, 51. It's one of them 50 numbers. Go see Roswell, right?
Well, I tell you what, Area 51, right next to it in Nevada, a little town called Rachel, Nevada. The stretch of highway that goes past it, very remote area. They refer to that as the extraterrestrial highway. That's the official extraterrestrial highway. But I would argue that really the whole road from Roswell, New Mexico, across New Mexico, up through Arizona, straight to Area 51. That area of the country, like per person, has more UFO sightings in the sky. I argued earlier that Kentucky has some very significant UFO history because of the abductions, because of the Kelly Little Green Men. These are close encounters of the third kind and fourth kind. And
that's what I'm telling you. They land in Kentucky.
Yes, yeah.
See?
As far as seeing them in the night sky, though, that sort of stuff, that's not necessarily unique to Nevada and Arizona and New Mexico, but those areas are like really great to go looking for these things.
Because you can see forever, right?
You can see forever, yes. In fact, there are cities in Arizona that are called international dark sky communities because they specialize in making sure there's no light pollution in the sky. The city of Sedona, Arizona, for example, they don't have like a Walmart supercenter shining its lights up or McDonald's with the big glowing golden arches. There's laws against it. So UFO chasers from all over the world, they descend on the desert of New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, because they've come to realize that that's the place to go if you're wanting to see some kind of unusual stuff up in the sky.
It sounds to me like you're not a fan of having a dollar store every mile and a half.
It makes it a little harder, maybe, for people trying to see what's going on upstairs. It makes it a little harder.
Well, before I toss to Katie, okay, what happened? You said you had an encounter. Tell us what you saw. What was your encounter?
I tell you what, I didn't start writing a book about UFOs. It kind of fell naturally after I wrote a book about Bigfoot. I wrote a book about Bigfoot. I contacted a lot of investigators across the country, and I asked them, I could use some help pinpointing some locations. Well, one man in Arizona that I reached out to about the Bigfoot phenomenon, because believe it or not, there is supposed to be a Bigfoot in Arizona. A lot of people roll their eyes, when I say that, a desert-based Bigfoot. It's called the Mogollon Monster, supposed to live on the Mogollon Rim. Well, I reached out to a man out there, and I was talking to him, and after my Bigfoot book came out, I got a call from him, and he said, I heard you're writing a UFO book next. And I said, I am. And he said, well, have you ever seen one? And I said, well, I've seen some, kind of odd lights in the sky, but a green fireball is another phenomenon. I had seen something like that before, but I said, I haven't seen anything that I would consider to be surefire UFO. Well, he said, well, do you want to? And I said, yeah. Well, yeah, I said, yeah, oh, absolutely. I'd love to see one. He said, well, I'll make you a deal. He said, if you come to the town that I live in, he lives in Sedona, Arizona, by the way. He said, if you come to the town I live in, I will show you a UFO. And, I was talking to him on the phone. I said, I don't know about that, man. I said, how can you guarantee? What do you mean you're going to show me a UFO? How can you guarantee somebody that's going to happen? He said, no, you don't understand. He said, I can guarantee it. All you've got to do is come here. And I'm thinking, man, that's a long way from Kentucky. Arizona's a long way from Kentucky. He said, all you do is come here and you'll see one. I will show you one. And I said, well, let me talk to my wife. Because, she's probably going to think we're on a wild goose chase. So I call her up. She was working that day. I said, you're not even going to believe. I got off the phone with this guy. He said, all we got to do is come to Arizona and we'll see a UFO. And she said, well, why are you telling me this? I said, well, you want to go to Arizona? And she said, well, I guess maybe we can. Well, we planned it out, and that's exactly what we did. We showed up in Phoenix. I called the guy. We flew to Phoenix. I called the guy because Sedona is about half an hour north of Phoenix. I say, we're here. We're in Arizona. It's time to put up or shut up. You promised we'd come a long way. He said, oh, young man. He said, I'm going to fulfill my promise. I'm going to come through for you. Tell me when you reach Sedona. So we took off on the highway north in the car. Here's the thing about Sedona. Like I said, it's one of those communities. It's an international dark sky community. So just an absolute amazing night sky. But the other thing about Sedona is, and I mentioned this earlier, it's supposed to have a vortex. I don't know if you all are familiar with the idea that Sedona is supposed to it's supposed to be like an energy center. Like goes back hundreds of years. Like the Native Americans understood that Sedona was kind of it was a place of healing. Like for years, they would send injured people, sick people there, and it just like magical properties. And still to this day, it's kind of got that effect. A lot of the New Age believers will frequent Sedona. It's like a mecca, like a pilgrimage spot. So the theory goes that the UFOs like to hang around that spot because of all the, I guess, the vortex energy. I don't know. You can look into it, but we kind of knew this stuff as we were going up. Well, we show up. I call the man when we get to Sedona, like he asked. He said, "Okay, meet us." He said, "Meet me at the end of this road." He said, "Come to this address. I'll be waiting for you in a gold truck." So I follow his directions. Me and my wife together in a rental car. Come to find out, he has us turn onto a dirt road. Yeah, in the middle of the desert, like 10 miles outside of Sedona. So we turn onto this dirt road. My wife's like, starting to think I've lost my mind, for doing this anyway, because I'd never met this guy in person before. And we turn on this dirt road. We're bouncing around down this road and going way out in the desert. And she's like, "Are we there? Where is this guy?" And I said, "He's waiting for us in a gold truck. Let's just give it a chance here." And sure enough, there he is. There's the gold truck right ahead of us. And we pull up with this guy. Sun's kind of starting to get low in the sky at this point. It's not sunset by any means, but I pull up there. There he is. There's the guy. I know him by pictures. I get out and I say, "All right, here we are. We talked a month ago. Here we are. You said you promised me that we'd see this thing." He said, "All right, and I plan on coming through. I plan on fulfilling my promise." He said, "But we're going to need two things." He said, actually, you're going to need two things. He said, "They're in this duffel bag in the back of my truck." I said, "Okay." He reaches, he grabs the duffel bag out and he hands it to me. He said, "Here, these are the two things you're going to need." He tells me how to use these two things. And then he says, "Now get back in your car." And he says, "I want you to keep driving down this road, this dirt road." He said, "Drive down this road a couple more miles." He said, "It's going to get really bumpy. Like it's a dirt, it's like an unkept road. He says, "It can get a little bumpy. Go until you feel like you shouldn't go any further." And he said, you'll be far enough away from Sedona at that point to where there will be, instead of like 1% light pollution, there'll be 0% light pollution. He said, "That's where you need to go." And he said, open this duffel bag." He said, "Use these two items inside." And he said, "You will see what you've come to see." And he said, "And your perspective on this stuff is going to change." So we did. We continued down the road, got all the way till I didn't really feel confident driving any further, and got out. Sun completely set by this point. Just it's out over the horizon. It's really dusky. I unzipped that bag. Me and my wife get out, and inside are two things. The first is a laser pointer, and I know it sounds a little strange. It's not just any laser pointer. This is one of those like high powered like laser pointers. It'll pop a balloon. You know what I'm saying? Like you shine it at like a really powerful laser pointer. And he said, "This is what you use to communicate." Now the other device in there was one I had never used before, and I've never used it since because it was like a pretty. I'll just put it like this. It looked like to me when I zipped it open, it looked like a pair of binoculars. But it was not a pair of binoculars. It was military grade night vision goggles, ones that I'd never seen. The man told me, he said, actually owning these puts me on a government watch list. That's what he said. He said, these are actually considered to be weapons because they're so powerful. They like to know where these are in the country. And I didn't ask him, well, why do you have them? I didn't think of to do that. But he had them. And he said, you don't want to turn these on until the sun is completely set. But he said, when the sun goes down, disappears over the horizon, he said, flip these goggles on. And he said, turn your eyes to the sky. And he said, and just wait. And you won't have to wait long. And he said, you'll be a believer. And we turned them on just a few minutes later. But I know we're getting close to a break, and I don't want to rush the end of the story. I'll just put it like this: we left with a changed perspective, and I'd be happy to talk more about it. But I don't.
Okay, we'll finish the story when we come back.
Are you a fan of horror movies, books, comics, music, and collectibles? Rumorg Magazine is for you. Subscribe today to receive 6 or 12 print issues annually and join me, executive editor Andrea Subisati, on an ongoing journey through the horror genre of the past, present, and future. Plus, get access to unmissable special editions such as A Century of Witches, 50 Years of Gore Cinema, British horror movies, and so much more. Rumorg, the world's premier horror and culture and entertainment magazine since 1997. Accept no substitute.
The next Central Kentucky Mystical Market is coming up next weekend, December 9th and 10th. Lexington's premier monthly psychic and holistic event held at 1950 Newtown Pike, the Clarion Hotel, just right off the Interstate Thursday. Get on Newtown Pike. Check us out online. Look them up on Facebook, Central Kentucky Mystical Market, or go to centralkymysticalmarket.com. My Patreon project is still ongoing. I'm kind of hung at 39 members on my Patreon project. So it's basically me, what I go through, training for my 5Ks. When I get to 50, I'm going to do that cosplay costume correct. I am going to cut the shirt off and everything. Go to patreon.com/ScareFestRadio. And I'm going to start doing movie reviews and TV shit, too, just because I can. Okay, and finally, I do want to give a plug to one of our co-hosts. I put the link on my Facebook page. I put it on the ScareFestRadio.com website. But Joanna Hochstetter she does these short feature things for Hook, Line, and Chill. Basically, okay, it's for teenage boys to watch girls in tight pants fish. I wish it was more artistic than that, but it's not. But, okay, now here's the funny part. She sends me the link, asks me if I'll promote it for her. We'd already said, I told her I would. She says, I'm the one in purple. Like it had to be explained to me which one she was. But anyway, okay, everybody click the link, go there, vote. And so far I've been able to vote on every device in my house. So apparently it's not tracked extremely well. I don't know how often you can vote. I have no idea. But if you don't mind, stop by my Facebook page, Wes Forsyth, or go to the website and the little banner at the top will rotate around. When you see her lovely picture, click on it. It'll take you to the voting page. You click a link and you're done. Katie, over to you.
Well, I got to hear the rest of his story because I've been left on like a cliffhanger. So you've got out in the middle of this desert with this the stranger's not with you. You have on your night goggles. What happened?
All right, so yeah, it's me and my wife. We're out here at the end of this, not at the end, the road kept on going and going, this dirt road. And sun goes down, we've got the goggles, we've got the high-powered laser pointer. And remember, he said the laser pointer is to communicate and the goggles are to see. Well, the sun goes down, I put those goggles on, and I kid you not, I turn that switch on, and it's like an eye-opening experience. I mean, not eye-opening, maybe that's not even, that's an understatement. I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, like your jaw drops open. In the desert, normally you can see tens of thousands of stars in the night sky. But when you flip this goggles on, suddenly those tens of thousands become hundreds of thousands or a million. I mean, you can see everything. It's like incredible. Like my jaw drops, my hands are shaking as I'm holding these goggles. And my wife's standing beside me like, what's wrong? What are you doing? And I just take the goggles down. I hand them to her because she has to see herself too. She takes them. Suddenly her jaw drops. And it's like, man, what are we missing out on not having a pair of these things? Well, we take turns like that probably for, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just back and forth, sort of just admiring the cosmos, admiring the universe. And finally I hand them to her and I'm just kind of waiting my turn. And suddenly I hear my wife, she says, oh my God. And, I immediately think, what's wrong? Maybe she's heard something, maybe she's bit by a snake. I don't know. And so it startles me. Hear her say, oh my God, this is what she says. So I, jump back. What is it? And she says, oh my God, again. And she's still got her head kind of, cranked to the sky with these goggles on. And she lowers them down and she's shaking, but not the same kind of shaking as seeing the universe. She's shaking because she's seen something. And she hands these things to me. She says, look. And I take them and I raise my head up. And at first I'm trying to see what she was looking at. And then I see it. It's four lights. And I kid you not, They're flying like in what I could only describe as a formation. 4 lights very slowly kind of traveling across the sky. Now, before we departed from the man I was telling you about, he told us what to look out for in the sky. He said, you're going to see shooting stars. You're going to see satellites. You're going to see planes. You're going to see all sorts of things up there. And he tried to tell us what to look for. For example, he said every plane's going to have lights on its wings and they're going to be flashing. He basically told us, this is what a shooting star is going to look like with these goggles on. But he said, you're going to see some other stuff too. And the other stuff, it's the unexplained stuff that you need to be looking for. Well, the 4 lights I'm talking about, the ones flying in formation, they fit the bill of the unexplained stuff that he was talking about. Well, I watched for just a minute as these 4 lights kind of flying in formation slowly across the sky. And I'm starting to shake like my wife is. And I'm thinking, what on earth am I looking at? And then my wife says, what about the communication? I said, what? He said, the laser pointer. I said, oh my gosh, the laser pointer. I said, give it to me. She hands me the laser pointer. Now, of course, you're never supposed to shine a laser pointer at a flying ship. That's a good way to have the FAA come after you. And the man was very specific. Don't shine it at, but shine it up. And he said, flash this device if you see something and just wait and see what happens. Well, as I was holding these goggles to my head, I raised that laser pointer up and I didn't shine it at it, but I beamed it away and I went bam, 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 3 flashes. I kid you not, on the 3rd flash, all 4 of those lights stopped. Dead stop in the middle of the sky. I've got chills right now just thinking about this. I pause for a second and wait. And then my wife says, what's going on? And I said, they stopped. And she said, we'll do it again. So I take my flash or my laser pointer and boom, boom, boom. I flash it 3 more times up there. And as if on cue, at the 3rd flash of that thing, the bottom right corner of that formation, that light, it boom, boom, it shines back at me, flashes 3 times, bam, bam, bam. At the end of the 3rd flash, that corner of that one of the 4 lights, it took off like a dart across the sky and over the horizon just like that, and it was gone. Well, it glows, it gets bright, and then takes off and it's gone, just like that. And I watched for just a second, my mouth ajar, and then all 3 of the others start their same little maneuver, real slow, across the night sky. And I lower the goggles. I tell my wife, I said, you are not going to believe what just happened. She said, I saw it. I said, what do you mean you saw it? She said, when it started glowing, I saw it. She said, I saw it. It started glowing, and then it took off over the horizon. I said, you saw that? And she said, yeah, you could see that with your naked eye. These other lights were just faint up in the heavens. You couldn't really see them without the goggles. But when that thing glowed, I have no explanation for what that was. I've been asking myself, this has been, I guess, 2 years ago. I've been asking myself for 2 years, what on earth was that? We stayed out there for at least another hour watching the skies, and we saw some odd stuff. I kid you. I mean, it was like a I have no explanation, but we saw some wild stuff. We saw lights traveling across the sky and then turn direction and dart back the other way, just on a dime. Strange, weird stuff. When we left that spot that night to go back and meet up with this fellow who let us borrow his equipment, he kind of asked me. He said, as I was handing it back to him later, he said, did you see what you came to see? And I said, oh, yeah. He said, so I kept my word. And he said, yes, you kept your word and then some. He said, and I promised you would leave a believer. And are you going to be leaving a believer? And I said, I'm going to be leaving a believer. And that's the most, I guess, phenomenal aerial display of this type of stuff. I'd seen other lights in the sky, but nothing that couldn't be explained away prior to this. But this, I had no explanation for that night, and I still have no explanation for 2 years later.
Holy shit. One, you're an excellent storyteller. I was right there fucking with you. I was picturing it. Oh my God. 2, I don't really know what I would do if I saw that. For one, my friend just was, I think, at Sedona, and all I know about it is they have a blue McDonald's. And so, like, now I want to go with her next time to go look for aliens.
There have been a lot of, apparently these types of goggles are not necessarily common, but there's a lot of people in the Sedona area who will, for the right price, they'll take you out in the desert. These days especially. It's becoming more and more of a UFO mecca. Sedona is, just in really the last few years, especially in the last few years. Post-COVID, it's really boosting their tourism, is the UFO, because so many people have been going, visiting, and seeing this type of stuff. And now more and more people are coming. But yeah, it's a wonderful place to visit for people who are interested in UFOs, but also just the vortexes. And it's like, and as I said, Bigfoot stories too. Who would have thought? But that town also has a Bigfoot history too. So really one of the most magical locations that I would say I've ever been. And it's absolutely beautiful. They always said God created the Grand Canyon, but he lives in Sedona. That's what they say about the city of Sedona. So a pretty magical looking place.
I want to go now. I mean, and now before the last break, I have a question, because I have a paranormal team, and I've always said that if somebody called me and was like, "Hey, we're having issues with aliens or Bigfoot, can I call you? Because I don't know what to do." I'll go investigate it, and then be like,
I don't know if I would know what to do either. You're welcome. I'm big into listening to stories. We opened last year a place in Somerset called the Nightmare Gallery. And you'd be surprised how many guests we have that come in, visitors who come in and say, I've seen some stuff myself, or they have some wild claims. And sometimes people just want to have somebody to talk to, somebody who's not going to judge them. So I always tell people, if you want to talk about this sort of stuff, I'm happy. I'm interested in it, and as much as anybody at this point. I love listening.
What did you say you opened up?
It was in August of 2022 was when we opened our doors on Paranormal Road Trippers Nightmare Gallery is what it's called. And
where is it in Somerset?
It's off of Oak Hill Road. It's about 2-3 miles from downtown Somerset. We've been open for about 15 months. So
Sweet.
We're excited. We're always, as I said, I'm a teacher. I'm an English teacher, so I've always had a love for folklore. And Kentucky's got so much folklore. It's interesting to open something up and just have people come and talk and tell their own stories. I'm always learning more stuff about Kentucky folklore. There's so much I feel like I don't even know. I've lived here and I don't even know all the stories there are about the area I'm from. And it's always, for example, we have an exhibit on serial killers. And a gentleman came in a gentleman and a lady came in not too long ago, and they said, "Well, where's your stuff about Charles Manson?" And I said, "Well, first off, Charles Manson, he wasn't really a serial killer. He got other people to do his bidding."
Yeah, he's a cult leader.
I know that, but they said, "Don't you realize that he's a Kentucky boy?"
He is.
I said, "No, I didn't. I didn't realize this." They said, born in, I guess, the Cincinnati area, and then grew up in Eastern Kentucky. I had no idea. So
it's like a dump up north somewhere. I don't know if it's still standing anymore.
These two said that it was still standing. They said they're going to try and get pictures and then bring it. And I said, if you bring pictures, I said, we'll put them on the wall and there'll be a brand new exhibit. So I'm always learning more stuff about Kentucky. I feel like it's a hotbed for just all sorts of things that go bump in the night.
Yeah, that's so weird too. I mean, I don't know. I can't figure out why Kentucky. I mean, like Wes said, I guess we're just a good place to stop and pee. And ever since we got that Buc-ee's too, I mean, that's taken our paranormal activity up a notch.
The cleanest bathrooms you can find.
Oh yeah. So we're coming up on our third break of the hour. I think we've got Bonehead Weekly.
We'll get there. First, we got to do Spirit Mechanics. My longtime sponsor, Spirit Mechanics. They have a brick-and-mortar store now at 1018 East New Circle Road. 1018 East New Circle Road. The Missing Element Shop. It's your one-stop shop for Spirit Mechanics, Stevens Healing Vibrations, Metaphysical Supplies, books, divination, altar supplies, tarot, oracle decks, handmade glassware, spirit boards, and cool thing is vibrational sound healings through the use of singing bowls and tuning forks, courtesy of Stephen Tyree. They also do classes on metaphysical and paranormal investigations, and they have special events and seminars. Check them out online, spiritmechanics.com, and see them in the real world, and they will be at the Mystical Market next weekend. I'd bet money on it. But check them out, spiritmechanics.com. Now, Bonehead Weekly is talking about Five Nights at Freddy's.
Hey, Scarefest fans, this is Joe Lewis of Bonehead Weekly, and I'm here wearing the Scarefest TV shirt. That's true, but I'm also here to talk about a movie that was killing at the box office, even though it was released on Peacock the same day it came out in the box office. And that's where I watched it, was Peacock. I didn't go see it because I've never actually played the game. We're going to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's. I've never played the game, but what I find fascinating about Five Nights at Freddy's, other than it's making over $100 million at the box office when you can watch it if you have Peacock right at your home, which is fine. I'm glad people are going to the theater, is the polarization of does it suck or is it really good, right? So critics hated it, which is fine. Critics have hated a lot of movies I've liked too, but a lot of people who love the game say it's amazing. Well, I've never played the game. So this review is from the perspective of someone who's never played the game. Do I think it sucks? No. Do I think it's particularly good? No. Do I think it's a middling film where we can guess what's coming from a mile away and there's 500 movies that came before it, and I mean before the game, that do something similar? Yes. Basically, this is the plot if you don't know anything about Five Nights at Freddy's, and I'm probably the only one who knew nothing about Five Nights at Freddy's. It's basically about a guy who's raising his little sister, and he has all these issues because he let his brother get kidnapped when he was young. He has a lot of trouble sleeping, and he's trying to sleep to figure out what happened and how he can go back through his memories to find what happened to his brother. And he gets a job because he keeps losing his jobs as a security guard. And this Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, where it's all shut down, it's no longer open, no one can go there. But for some odd reason, they still keep it up, kind of, with a security guard. That's not suspicious. And during his first night on the job, he realizes that the night shift won't be so easy to get through because those Freddy Fazbear, Chico, all of them, they come alive, and he's going to have to figure, why are they coming alive? Why are they after him? Why are they killing people? Why is there just some rando cop showing up, showing interest when she should be doing other things? There's not a lot of stuff that makes sense in this movie, but it's not as bad as something else I watched lately. In fact, that's actually my problem with it. And I understand that if I'm a huge fan of the video game, a lot of you said it's so, and that's good. I understand. A lot of people crapped on Ghostbusters Afterlife, and I understood their criticism because I don't think their criticism is wrong. I just thought Ghostbusters Afterlife wasn't made for them. It was made for some guy who grew up loving Ghostbusters more than anything. And then it's a love letter to people like me. And this movie may very well be a love letter to those folks who love the game of Five Nights at Freddy's. Matthew Lillard, boy, you can see where his turn is coming in the movie a mile away. By the way, if you ever have a chance, ask me about my Matthew Lillard Skeet Ulrich story when you're at Scarefest. There's a mystery of why it's happening. This movie is made not necessarily for kids. I wouldn't let my 6-year-old watch it. A lot of people probably are correct. This is one of those movies you can show a younger person to kind of get them introduction into horror. And that's probably correct. Jim Henson's Creature Shop actually was responsible for the Fazbear animatronics that we walk around. And that's cool that there's not a ton of CGI with those. I don't know. This movie just didn't do it for me. But then again, it's not awful either. It's a little long for me. I don't know. Five Nights at Freddy's shouldn't be more than 90 minutes to me. I think I need one of you all to set me down who plays the game and explain to me why this is amazing. See, I'm not a huge Harry Potter fan, but I didn't care for the books either. So that may be very well what it is you have to have the background to enjoy the movie. That's another criticism I can give. If I have to see it, then anyway. This movie, it's okay. You've probably already seen it. I just wanted to do a review of it. So should you see Five Nights at Freddy's if you haven't? If you're a fan of the video game, absolutely. If you have Peacock, absolutely. Would I recommend anybody going out and, oh my God, this is amazing? No. If you're going to introduce your kids to some horror, there are Night Books on Netflix. Much better movie. Night Books. That is more of a kid-friendly way of introducing them to horror. I know I normally say Poltergeist, but I'm trying not to be that 80s guy. Night Books. Introduce them to that. Five Nights at Freddy's, not so much. This has been Joe Lewis of Bonehead Weekly.
And welcome back, everybody, to the final segment of Scarefest TV, talking to Zach Bales tonight about the enduring mystery of UFOs. Okay, now I'm just going to take it kind of off the what you know kind of thing, and let's just talk theory or imagination for a moment. First of all, wouldn't it be really funny if you shined the laser pointer up and you hit a UFO and it's like you blinded them and you caused an intergalactic incident just because? That ran through my head.
I don't know if I'd be proud of that or scared of that. That would be fascinating.
I mentioned before about, the government is finally saying, yeah, we got some shit we don't understand. Do you, and this is, once again, this is just total bullshit theory. Do you think it's going to be a mystery much longer? Do you have any idea? Do you foresee? I mean, I'm not asking what you know. I'm just saying this kind of the trends you're obviously in that side of the field much deeper than I am. Do you see any trends that make you think maybe they're going to be landing on the White House lawn soon? Something like that.
I feel like if there's anything that I've learned being interested in the paranormal or UFOs or Bigfoot or any of this, it seems like that every time that one stone gets unturned, it only makes you realize just how many more stones there are to still turn over. So, I mean, anytime that there's good news or it seems like something's about to happen, the big reveal is right on the way. Maybe I'm cynical. Maybe I probably am. But I just can't help but feel like, there's whole new mysteries. It's just one way leads on to another way. There's never any end out of the maze. So I'm not holding my breath that regardless of what comes out of this situation, whatever it is, I'm still not holding my breath that we're going to be too much closer to the truth. But boy, oh boy, do I hope so. I certainly hope so.
At Scarefest this year, somebody asked in Beverly McChesney's gallery, she's a psychic. She mentioned about aliens in the water. Have you heard any rumors about like aquatic aliens? I saw something online once, but the internet never lies. So
I have read articles, read stories about this type of phenomenon before, but I don't have any firsthand experience with that type of stuff. Unfortunately, I wish I could say that I do. I mean, I've heard some guests and people tell me that they've seen strange lights and whatnot under the water. Well, an unidentified submerged object is a phenomenon. There's a
they're wanting to rename UFOs AEPs because they don't want to confuse the two terms. Yeah, underwater and unidentified.
I encourage anybody to look up Walker Lake in Nevada. Walker Lake there's a naval base in Nevada, right next to Walker Lake, and for years conspiracy theories have abounded that that's where they have these unidentified submerged objects. They're working on them, and there's supposed to be an underground tunnel that comes out in Monterey Bay, California, that they take these UFOs or these underwater UFOs in and out of. They go the caverns go beneath the Sierra Nevada mountains and then come out in Walker Lake. All of it starts off with just the idea: why is there a naval base in Nevada? And they've cooked up all these theories, and maybe there's a kernel of truth there. Who knows? I mean, so it's possible that when people say that there's underwater UFOs and this sort of thing, I mean, there's stories in the United States of that. So, I mean, it's not too far from here. Really, Nevada's really not that far away, all things considered. So you never know. I mean, I encourage anybody to look up Walker Lake underwater UFOs. You'll find all sorts of information about them.
My other question I had, I'm sorry, Wes, if I'm interrupting you.
You're good.
Is what I know that the United States, we have all kinds of UFO activity and stories, but what about around the world? Do other countries have this kind of alien interactions?
Historically, there have been some of the most profound UFO cases in history have taken place outside of the United States. There is a very famous in Robozero, Mexico. There was a very famous encounter in Nuremberg, Germany. One of the aerial battle that took place in the 1500s in Nuremberg, Germany. No one's ever been able to figure this out. But there's all sorts of parchments and texts because the whole city of Nuremberg, like everybody in town, saw this aerial battle that played out in the sky above the city. There's all sorts of stories. If you start looking up international UFO stories throughout history, you're going to find that, I mean, a lot of the more modern cases have happened in and around the United States, or at least a lot of the most documented ones. But Rendlesham Forest in the UK, up in Shag Harbor, Nova Scotia, that was in the 1960s. That was just like weeks before the Mothman phenomenon started. I always tell people, late 1960s, you had the Patterson-Gimlin film, you had the Mothman phenomenon, and you had the UFO crash in Nova Scotia, Shag Harbor, Nova Scotia. You had all three of those events took place in a matter of weeks. Like that was, what a time to be alive. In the 1960s and 1966 and 1967. Man, there was some big stuff going on.
The only thing, in the 60s, they used to land and leave little burnt footprints out in the field. You never hear about that anymore. This bothers the hell out of me. But I believe there's one in the Bible.
Yeah.
Can y'all see that?
Is that the wheels within wheels?
That is a wheel in the middle of a wheel, baby.
Yeah, I mean, that's also a famous. Yeah, if you go all the way back, you can find stories in the Bible about UFOs.
I mean,
it's predate the Bible.
I can't think of a better. Okay, if you're a primitive person who don't even know what a digital watch is, and you had to describe a flying saucer, that really sounds like a good description. Just saying.
Well, there's a city in Lyon, France, years ago. I mean, hundreds of years ago. They claimed that the ship came down and people walked. A cloud. They described it as looking like a cloud. A cloud descended out of the sky and people came out of the cloud. And that's part of the history books. Ancient China, they had stories of dragons and carrying a dragon from the sky with a chariot behind it that would touch down and people would get out of this dragon-led chariot. I mean, this goes all through history. All this, every society that's existed on every continent has had stories about UFOs. This is nothing new, nothing that anybody just in the United States in the last 60 or 70 years is seeing for the first time. No, this goes back millennia.
But do we have a corner on the used parts market?
Well, good question. That is a very good question. Maybe we.
You don't hear about other countries, swarm, and just like you said, the guy told you in Canada, they had something, and we're up there. So you don't hear. At least I don't hear about it, but you being in the know might hear about, if they're in Brazil, they're digging up crash sites.
It's always fascinated me that Nova Scotia, that they were talking about, the United States government was the ones who were on the scene investigating on Canadian soil. I mean, I have no explanation for why that would have been the case, or why. It seems like it would be out of our.
It sounds just like us, though. That sounds like something we would do.
It does. It does.
It's just fucking Canada anyway.
It's no wonder that a lot of the world looks at the United States and just shakes their fists. It's like, how dare you come up here and steal all of our UFO parts from under us?
And once again, they're probably all stored in Kentucky because some of these junkyards, you don't know what's in them. You just don't know. Anyway, okay, everybody, this has been Scarefest TV tonight. Special thanks to Zach Bales for coming on and putting up with our mischief and mayhem here. Next week, we have Rosemary Idisi, and I'm hoping I'm saying her name right. I have no clue. But she had a movie called Glamping at the Scarefest, a little short, and it won Best Short, and she won Best Actress, if I remember correctly. So it's definitely, and she wrote it and starred in it. She didn't direct it, but she was the writer. So we'll be talking to her. Everybody, thanks for tuning in tonight. We'll be back next week.